Hello, hello. Going a little crazy. Lots of videos. Let's get this done. So day two or part two of 8.6 is really just more practice with and taking a look at a couple wrinkles that can happen when it comes to the AC method of factoring. So just to keep the other techniques or methods in our mind, let's remind ourselves what it looks like to factor x squared minus 8x plus 77. Because there's no number in front of x squared and there's no GCF in the entire problem, I can go right to finding numbers that multiply to 77 and add up to negative 18. Anytime I see a double number like 77, I think 11 and something. And sure enough, if I do 11 and 7, which multiply to 77, in order to make it add to negative 18, I just make both of the numbers negative. But now this is the key difference, and we'll get into this more in the video. The key difference here is that since I didn't have to do AC, I don't have to go through that whole process of replacing the B value. I can go right to my factors. Since it's just plain x squared in the original problem, I know it's going to be x times x. And then minus 11 and minus 7, we'll just put 1 in each factor and we're done. Okay. So if there's no A value, it's just what multiplies to C and adds to B. Here, again, the moment you see 4 terms, you should be thinking, hey, this is factor by grouping. I look and see that those 4 terms have nothing in common. 4 and 5 have nothing in common. So I'm ready to split this up right away. First 2 terms, I can take out 4 and an x from each, which will leave me with 1x minus 3. And over on the right side, if I take 5 from both of those terms, positive 5, I'd be left with 1x minus 3, which is perfect. So x minus 3 times 4x plus 5. Just every time we do the first one of these, I'm going to remind us that the second set of parentheses are the GCFs that come together. So there is my factored form. Okay, so we're good to go there. Now, just a real quick recap from the previous video. Okay, the AC method of factoring, checking for a GCF, which in this case there isn't one. I'm then going to multiply A with C. So 2 times positive 10 becomes the number atop my factor tree. So what multiplies to 20, but still adds up to the middle value, that B value, which is 9 in this case. Multiplies to 20 and adds to 9 are 5 and 4. And then this is what's unique with the AC method is that instead of plus 9x, I'm going to replace it with 5x and 4x. I'm going to keep the first 2 terms the same. So I go from 3 terms to 4, and now I can split it up and be on my way. Okay, so here, if I take x out of those 2 terms, because 2 and 5 don't have a common factor, I have 2x plus 5. And on the right side, if I take out 4x and 10, I can take a positive 2 from both of those. So this gives me 2x plus 5 as well. So x plus 2 and 2x plus 5 are my factors for this problem. Okay, so that's the AC method of factoring that the previous video was all about practicing. Okay, so turn 3 terms into 4, split it up, and factor by grouping. Okay, and this is really the key to the video, and this will be a short one. I'll cut this off soon. But just because there's a number in front of x squared does not mean you have to do the AC method. Okay, if you see a number like this, first check, is it a GCF? I can divide all 3 of these numbers by 5. So do that. Okay, if I divide everything by 5, x squared minus 11x plus 10. But guess what? Now there's no number in front of x squared, so I don't have to do the AC method. I can just ask myself, all right, what multiplies to C and adds to B? Okay. If it's going to multiply to 10, in this case it's going to be 10 and 1 because I need to make 11, but I actually need to make it negative 11, so I make both of those numbers negative. Now, because I didn't have to do AC, I can go right to the parentheses and say x minus 10 times x minus 1 Okay, that's this portion of it. That's the parentheses portion. So this is that. Then I just bring the GCF of 5 down, and I'm done. Okay. You could do the AC method for this. You could multiply 5 times 50 and get 250. But then you would have to find two numbers that multiply to 250 and add to negative 55. And that's not an easy task. Okay. So we're going to be so much better off just finding if there is a GCF, take it out right away. Okay. And really, the last thing I want to take a look at is comparing side by side two of these problems. One where we have to do AC method and one where we don't. Okay, notice they both start with 2x squared. They both end with plus 12, but the middle term is different. And that changes everything in how we do this problem. Okay, 2x squared minus 10x plus 12. I can take 2 from all three of those terms. X squared minus 5x plus 6. And now that the x squared doesn't have an a value, or the a value is 1, I can just find factors of 6 that add to negative 5. Okay. Now this is another goofy number combination. It's actually going to be negative 2 times negative 3 because it has to be a positive 6, not a negative 6. So if you're trying to do 6 and 1 or thinking 6 and 1 in your head, that might be why. So I've got factors of x minus 2 times x minus 3, and then I have my GCF that I took out from earlier out front. Okay, so that's the first possibility. If there's a number in front of x squared, just take it out front and then treat the rest of the problem like like a normal, or like a, not normal, but a simpler trinomial. Okay. If that number in front, if that a value isn't a GCF, then we have to go a times c right away. Okay. So a times c, 2 times 12 is 24. I need factors of 24 that add to negative 11. Okay. Poke around a little bit, see if you can figure out numbers. It ends up being 8 and 3, both negative. So I have, instead of 8x, instead of minus 11x in the middle term, right, I'm getting rid of that, and I put minus 8x and minus 3x instead. Now I've got 4 terms. Now I can go about splitting it up. Left half has a GCF of 2x, which leaves me with x minus 4. Right half has a GCF of negative 3, which leaves me with x minus 4. Okay. So now we have x minus 4 is one factor, times 2x minus 3 is the other factor, and we're done. Okay. So two very similar looking problems, but how we go about doing it are the techniques are different. Okay, one of them, everything divides by 2, the numbers get smaller, and we get to the answer more directly. The other way, we have to do the AC method and replace the b value. Okay. So go ahead, pause, give these two a try real quick. We'll summarize all of factoring, and then we'll get out of here. Okay, so 10y squared, 10, 30, and 40 can all be divided by 10. So I got y squared minus 3y minus 4. Now that y squared is by itself, I just need two numbers that multiply negative 4, but add up to negative 3. In this case, those numbers are going to be negative 4 and positive 1. So y minus 4 times y plus 1. Notice that even though I use the letter y in this example, the techniques are still the same. I'm just using y in my answer instead of x. And don't forget that GCF of 10, putting that out front. Okay. Here, 3t squared minus 4t minus 15. 3 and 4 have nothing in common, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply. That is a negative 15, so I have to make sure I put negative 45 up top. Okay. Has to add to negative 4. And what multiplies to 45? Well, 9 times 5 works. And if I make the 9 negative, negative 9 plus 5 will give me negative 4. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring this down a little bit further. So keep the 3t squared, keep the minus 15, but in the middle, I'm going to put minus 9t and plus 5t. So now I've got 4 terms, and we split, and we're good. Okay. Here, 3t is the GCF, and over here, 5 is the GCF. All right. So then we have 3t plus 5 times t minus 3, and that's done. Okay, so check for GCF. If there isn't one, then go about doing the AC method, which is really what I just said. That GCF first is just going to make your life easier. Anytime you can make the number smaller and more manageable, it's going to be more helpful. This is kind of just a graphic organizer of all the different factoring we've done so far. So what we just covered was 3 terms when a is equal to 1. 3 terms if a is not equal to 1. This is that AC method we talked about. And then from section 8.8, which we already covered, we have if there's 4 terms, then you're going to automatically jump to factoring by grouping. Okay, but notice at the very top of this is the number 1 rule of factoring. You have to check for, is there a GCF first? Not only will it make your answer simpler, it will make your life easier when it comes to finding factors. The last thing we're going to do is talk about what happens if there are 2 terms, only 2 terms that you have to factor, and we'll discuss that in the last video. So there we go. We're good. We're done. Hit stop share.